This video is a continuation of our Python Flask WT forms example, specifically the Five Guys series. And we are now getting the choices from a JSON file. And previously, we had gotten just the burgers from the JSON file. Now we're doing something more general. And we did that twice. Once I have sort of two Pythons. One is more the more Flask, more about routing, and the other one is more the WT forms. And in two previous videos, one time I read the JSON file from the WT forms Python, and then the other time I read it from the app, the more Flask version. I'm back now into the WT forms, but I'm reading more of the choices, also the cook levels and the toppings, and they are different in their JSON. So I've shown sort of two methods, each one individualized using a list comprehension, but also a sort of a more generic function I've sort of developed for handling different kinds of JSON. Okay, so here's our basic thing. We're generating this interface, and I want a cheeseburger. I want it well done. I want tomatoes and mushrooms and onions on it. And I think I want fries. And it's spitting out my information and calculating a price. Okay, so this is the app, the routing part, and not much there has changed. So we need, in addition to the app, which is more the routing, the Flask, I have a forms file, which is more the WTF, the WT forms. I have two HTMLs, the form and the form handler. They have a shared layout and a shared style, and I'm reading a text file, a JSON file. Okay, so let's look at the JSON file. I have burgers and now burgers. So I have a dictionary. It has a property or a key of burgers, which is then a list, and it's a list of smaller dictionaries. And for burgers, those dictionaries have name, abbreviation, and price. Whereas down for the levels has a similar format, but fewer properties. So here for levels, which is another property, it is a list, and it just has these very simple objects or dictionaries with just name. And then in the toppings, I just made it a list of strings. So I'm trying to handle some variations within the JSON. Okay. So now here is the forms. This is more the WTF. That was the submit button, the radio field, select multiple field along with the widgets gets turned into checkboxes. The Boolean field was that single checkbox at the end for fries, and hidden sent some additional information about the fries. And I have some input required validation. Sometimes I set defaults in my radio buttons, and then I don't have to worry about validators, or sometimes I have validators and I insist that the person choose one of the radio buttons. I'm reading a JSON file. I'm reading it over here in the WTF, so I don't have much like knowledge of the app. So static is a folder within the regular old file system, and it's also an important file within the app. I'm using it more as just a regular file in the file system because over an app, I can use the app stuff, but not over here. So JSON operating system, find the right file, find this file, find this path, and then from that path, there's a subfolder static, which has a subfolder data, and that has the 5guys_3 JSON, which we looked at. Read the file, parse it as JSON. Okay. And now here is, let me jump down. Here's my form, and I'm getting my choices for the burger are burger choices. The choices for the levels are level choices. The choices for the topping are topping choices, and then the Boolean field and the hidden field and the submit. This is the thing that turns the widget thing that turns the multi-select into checkboxes. Okay, and here's my function, tuple list maker. And then here's me using the tuple list maker. So let's look at tuple list maker. And again, I'm just trying to handle some different formats within the JSON. So I'm taking in a list, and it's a list of dictionaries, but it could be a list of strings. So I wanted to also handle that. So overall, I'm going to make a list. So I'm starting off with that list. I'm looping over the items in the list that is being sent to the function. And I'm making a sort of a sub list, but I'm going to then eventually cast that as a tuple, because what I want for choices is a list of tuples. So if it's a string, if the item that I'm looping over is a string, that's what this if does for me. If is instance, parentheses item, comma string, str, then I just want that string sort of added, sort of each thing to my tuple. So I want it in the tuple in choices. The first one is the value, the behind the scenes thing, and the other one is what the user sees. And if there's just a simple string, I want it to be both. So then I'm taking just, if it is a string, I'm just taking the item and the item. So for me, that's handling here toppings. Toppings is just a list of strings. So this if handles the strings. It's just making a tuple which has that string twice. Otherwise, I'm assuming it was a dictionary. So if there was something else in there, then this is going to fail. But I'm assuming it was either a list. I'm sending it either a list of strings or a list of dictionaries with properties. Okay. So I am taking my item now is a dictionary. And so I can get the values of the dictionary. So if I'm burgers and I'm the first iteration, then my values are hamburger, HB, and 619. So those are the values. I'm going to join. I'm going to use a vertical bar. So in Python, join is sort of a string thing and then takes the list as its argument. So I am using a vertical bar as a delimiter, and I'm joining the elements that are the values of my item. So item here is a dictionary. It has a set of values, and I am going to loop over those elements, over those values. So there's a bigger loop of looping over the items, but here I'm looping over the values of an item, and I'm converting that to a string because I have the 619, so not everything in here is a string. So I convert it to a string, and I join it with a vertical bar, and I add that. So the behind the scenes thing has all of my values. So it's going to be hamburger, vertical bar, HB, vertical bar, 619. Let's see that. Let's go back here, view the page behind. Here's my burger, and there it is. The value was hamburgers, vertical bar HB, vertical bar 619. Okay, so that's what this did. And I add that to my little list, which is going to be turned into a tuple. And then I'm also grabbing just the 0th item. So I'm presuming here that the first thing was the name. So what the user is going to see is the 0th item. I might have to do something else. I might have to assume it was name or something like that, but I just assumed the first thing is what they wanted to see. So behind the scenes, I want it all, but I want the first thing to be seen by the user. Those are my assumptions in this, and that it was indeed a dictionary, a list of dictionaries. Okay, add those both, cast my little sub list as a tuple, then add my tuple to my overall list, return my overall list. So I use that to make burgers and levels and toppings. But if you prefer, if you don't like my function, then you can also just do the equivalent using list comprehension. So I can I'm making a list, and I'm within the list, I'm making a list of tuples. So that's the parenthesis here. And then the first thing was 3 items with a vertical bar between, and I put in the name and the abbreviation of the price, and then a comma. This is the second component of my tuple, which was just the name. And that's for all the X's in FG_data burgers. So I have this, it's half comments, but I have this somewhat complicated function that I use, but I can also do these in sort of one-liners with list comprehension. So it depends on your taste. Level choices, same thing. It was just name and name. And for the topping choices, because they were already strings, it was XX. So again, it could be, there's a function that I'm showing you, which can take different formats of JSON, or I can work with list comprehension. Then I'm going to have to adapt sort of myself. And then the only other thing that changed here, because previously I had a name and a price, but I've added another thing, another complication. So my handler has a slight variation. Where is my handler? JSON3 handler. And here I had to adapt this. I'm on the other side of the handler, that what was behind the scenes is passed over here. And I'm just saying that the user's choice of burger, the value that's sent over, I'm splitting it on that vertical bar, and there were 3 things. I could generalize my function, say, and make one of the parameters a delimiter, and I can allow the user to change the delimiter. You can generalize. This is sort of generalized from what I had before. You could generalize it even more. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show in this one. Thanks for your attention.